I asked ChatGPT 4 a question today. I asked, if a newspaper makes a series of 10 predictions about something that will happen in the future, and all of them happen, what are the odds? All of the events are things that the newspaper could not have had control over, such as naming a man who will become president in the future who hasn't been born yet, or a war in a nation that doesn't exist yet, or a prediction that Latin will be revived and millions of people will speak it every day in a new European nation. All the other predictions the newspaper makes are just as unlikely. Is it possible to calculate the odds of something like that? And here is its answer. Calculating the exact odds of a series of highly specific and unlikely predictions coming true is extremely challenging because it depends heavily on the nature of each prediction and the inherent probabilities of each event happening independently. However, we can attempt to understand the magnitude of the odds by making some assumptions about the improbability of each individual prediction. Assumptions and approach. Improbability of each event. Let's assume that each event predicted has an extremely low probability of occurring, say 1 in a million. Independence of events. We assume that the events are independent of each other, meaning the occurrence of one event does not affect the probability of another event occurring. Calculating combined probability. The probability of all 10 independent events occurring is the product of the probabilities of each individual event occurring. And then it goes over all of the calculations, and it gives me the resulting probability of all 10 highly unlikely predictions coming true, assuming each event is as unlikely as 1 in a million. And the probability is extraordinarily small, indicating that it is virtually impossible for all 10 predictions to come true by mere chance. And then it gives me the real-world implications. In real-world scenarios, predicting events with such low probabilities accurately would likely indicate some form of extraordinary knowledge or influence beyond normal human capabilities. It would be akin to predicting outcomes with near certainty in extremely unpredictable systems, suggesting factors such as advanced foresight, hidden information, or supernatural insight. Conclusion: while exact calculations depend on the specific probabilities assigned to each event, assuming each event is extremely unlikely, that is, 1 in a million, the combined probability of all 10 predictions coming true is astronomically low. This demonstrates the extreme unlikelihood of such a scenario occurring by chance. And as a decimal, it was expressed as 0 point and then 120 zeros, 1. You can see from the calculations how small that number is. Now, when the events are not independent, the odds change. And 10 interrelated events occurring by chance would still be 1 in a quintillion, which is as likely as picking a specific grain of sand out of all the grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth. So if there was such a newspaper, everybody would be reading it. Of course, there is no such newspaper, but there is such a book, and apparently hardly anybody reads it anymore. It's the Bible. I thought ChatGPT's comment that such accurate predictions would take advanced foresight, hidden information, or supernatural insight was interesting. And absolutely, it takes supernatural insight, and that's what we see in the Bible. The questions I asked ChatGPT for were based on fulfilled Bible prophecies. Nobody thought Israel would ever be a nation again, except Christians who took the Bible seriously, such as Sir Isaac Newton. Yet the Bible predicted it thousands of years ago. It even predicted the nation would be born in a day, and it was. It also predicted the Jewish people would be scattered all over the world and rejected and in danger wherever they went, and we have certainly seen that. The Bible says Satan is the god of this age, and it doesn't take a genius to see that that's true. We can see evidence for it in movies and TV and books and music and Super Bowl halftime shows. As for naming a ruler before he was even born, the Bible predicted that a ruler named Cyrus would send the children of Israel back to Jerusalem to rebuild. That happened. The Bible predicted that Hebrew would be spoken again in the land of Israel. That has happened. The Bible predicted that when Israel would be reborn, there would be war. That happened. The Bible said Israel would be born in a day. That happened. It happened May 14th, 1948. The newspapers said, "The state of Israel is born." Then the newspapers covered the war that broke out. The headlines read, "Tel Aviv is bombed. U.S. recognizes Jewish state. Palestine invaded by Arabs. Israeli-Egyptian tanks battle in Sinai Desert." The Bible predicted that Hebrew would be spoken again in the land of Israel. That happened. It predicted the shekel would be used again. That happened. The Bible predicted in Daniel 9 that the Messiah would come, he would be killed, and then the temple would be destroyed. That happened. Even though the temple didn't exist when Daniel was captive in Babylon, which meant it had to be rebuilt. That happened. The Bible predicted that when Israel would be reborn, there would be war. That happened. It's happening still. It predicted that Israel would again gain control of Jerusalem. That happened. It also predicts all the nations of the world will come against Israel at the end. And that looks extremely likely. It's happening. But there are a lot more than just 10 fulfilled Bible prophecies that have been fulfilled. There are hundreds. Many of them have been fulfilled since the rebirth of Israel, such as Israel will be rebuilt. There will be pools in the desert. Israel will blossom and bud and fill the world with fruit. Well, bingo. Israel ships fruit all over the world. It ships flowers all over the world. It turned barren swamp into an oasis. When Mark Twain traveled to the Holy Land in 1867, he could not understand why anyone would want to live there. He said it was a desolate country, given over wholly to weeds. A desolation is here that not even imagination can grace with the pomp of life in action. We never saw a human being on the whole route. There was hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere. Even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of the worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. His visit was a fulfillment of Deuteronomy 29:22-25. Those verses prophesied that foreigners from a distant land would witness this desolation one day and speak of it to the shocked nations. Mark Twain literally did that in his book, The Innocents Abroad. When the Jewish people began returning to the land in large numbers, a few decades after Twain's prophesied visit of 1867, it was either malaria-infested swamp or infertile desert. They began transforming the solitary wilderness. They bought large tracts of land and sometimes paid for the same property twice. They planted entire forests, which increased rainfall. They developed advanced irrigation systems and grew all manner of fruits and vegetables in what was once an unfruitful desert. Birds, animals, and the surrounding people flocked to the land which had not been able to support them previously, and all of it was predicted. And all of it happened. The Bible prophesies about our day, and it has it right. We should take it seriously and stop spiritualizing it. Jesus took it seriously, and he rose from the dead. If you have trouble believing that, take a good hard look at the Shroud of Turin, because it's photographic evidence of the event. In the Bible, God specifically points to prophecy as evidence he is God. We learn in Isaiah 46:10 that God declares the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done. God tells us in advance what will happen. The Bible says he does this so we can know he is God, so we can know there is a God, and so we can know that this is his word, this is who he is, this is who we are, and this is what God expects from us. Almost 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy. Those include prophecies that were fulfilled and fulfilled literally, prophecies that are being fulfilled and being fulfilled literally, and prophecies that will be fulfilled, and they will be fulfilled literally too. If the Bible got all of those prophecies that I discussed in this video right, what else will it get right? The Antichrist? Armageddon? The return of Jesus? A 7-year tribulation? Oh yeah, it will get all that right too. I hope you will read the Bible, take it seriously, and get on your knees and pray about these things. You may have a lot of distractions in this completely crazy and upside-down world, but the one thing you should not be distracted from is God. He does exist. The Bible says to seek Him while He may be found. It is my prayer that you will seek Him, and it is my prayer that you will find Him. Open the Bible, because that's where He reveals Himself. And He backed up that revelation with prophecy. I decided to add something. I asked ChatGPT what would happen if there were hundreds of prophecies fulfilled like that. And that was so out of the realm of possibility that it went back to the original question about 10 prophecies being fulfilled that were not connected to each other. Now you would write that as a 1 with 120 zeros in front of it after the decimal point. And ChatGPT said the verbal description of that in words would be, it's 120 orders of magnitude smaller than 1. It is 1 in a novum decillion, since a novum decillium is 10 to the 60th power, and 10 to the negative 120th power would be 1 part in a novum decillion squared. As a practical example, it compared it to atoms in the observable universe. The estimated number of atoms in the observable universe is around 10 to the 80th power. Therefore, 1 times 10 to the negative 120th power is much smaller than the reciprocal of the number of atoms in the universe. It's like imagining you had one specific atom in a universe multiplied by many orders of magnitude of more universes. And then ChatGPT put it into perspective. The tiny probability of that happening, the probability of 1 times 10 to the power of a negative 120, is so small that it is beyond practical experience. It is effectively zero for any physical or probabilistic event we can conceive of in reality. And yet the Bible did that. On a scale comparison, if the universe were filled with grains of sand, and each grain represented another universe, you would still be talking about a minuscule fraction of the total. So 1 times 10 to the negative power of 120 is an incredibly small number, far beyond what we typically encounter in everyday life or even in the most scientific context. And that was just 10 prophecies being fulfilled that were not connected to each other. But the Bible is full of prophecy. As I have said, 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy. There are hundreds of prophecies in the Bible. Many have been fulfilled. Many are happening right now. And many are coming together to happen in the near future. So, as I've said in my Bible code videos and in basically all of the videos I've done, we can trust the Bible. And we need to pay attention to it. We need not to listen to what the skeptics have to say because they're wrong. The atheists are wrong. The truth is found in the Bible, and that is where you need to look for it. Even though I don't normally advertise my books, I will say if you're interested in Bible prophecy and you want to know more about past events and present events and future events, please see my book, What Happens Next. It's at Amazon, and I'll link to that in the description. Thank you for listening.